Well, hello, everybody. How are we this evening? It is October 15th, the year of our Lord 2024, or as I would say, what is it? 53 years AC after Cooper. So, good evening, everybody. Let's see who we have here today. Oh, hi there, Nicole Legg. How are you? Good to see you. I will be seeing Nicole, I guess, within a month from now. We have CooperCon coming up. Hi, Jacob. Hello, everybody. We have CooperCon coming up within 30 days, I guess. I know I'll be getting in Wednesday night. Hello, Nemo. Hello to my friends. Hello to Poirot in England. How are you? And anyway, so we're just going to hang out. Hello, Winston. It's Uncle Winston there, Vinyl Varieties. I sent our friend McNally a invite to join our chat tonight. Hopefully Mac shows up. Hi, Darren. Hello, James. Hello, everybody. So really, this is just going to be just trying to stick to a schedule. I try to do these every 2 weeks. I'm maybe trying to get a schedule where I can do a live once a week, and then the next week do one of my short videos. The short videos, people like those that I've been doing lately. So that's kind of what I'm going to be doing. Maybe 2 short videos a month and 2 live videos a month. That's kind of what I'm shooting for once a week. So, hey, Aaron. Okay. So we'll jump right into it. Hey, Packer. Hello, Sequence. Hello, Stool Boom. Okay. So DB Cooper himself starts us off tonight. He asks, what happens first? We find Amelia's Electra or we find Coop? I would say that we probably find the Electra first. I think we can still find Cooper pretty soon. It could happen any day. You never know with Cooper. It could just be, hey, I found some 20s in Papaw's attic or something like that. So just something like that could happen. But the Electra, gosh, I don't know what to think. I used to be really involved in Amelia Earhart. Chris Williamson, who a friend of mine hosts the Vanished show, the Vanished podcast. He's big into Amelia Earhart. That's kind of his thing. And it seems to be that there's 3 real theories about Amelia Earhart. There's the theory that she just crashed in the middle of the ocean, ran out of fuel, and just sank to the bottom. Then there's the theory about her landing on Nikimaroro Island, which was called Gardner Island at the time, and dying there as a castaway, which kind of was what I think seems likely. Then there's the theory that she was captured by the Japanese somehow, which I don't, that just seems unlikely to me. The Japanese can be secretive about things, but it seems like if that had happened, it would have been documented, and the Japanese have no reason to not mention that. I guess if they killed her, that would kind of be embarrassing for their government, but they have no reason, 70 years later to not mention it. So I think, I don't know, either she went down in the ocean or landed on Nikimaroro, which, the Nikimaroro thing's interesting because I don't know why else there would be. They found, nobody was on that island. There were some islanders there at some point in early history. Then I believe there were some British soldiers there right around the start of World War II. And that's pretty much it. And I know that some of the archaeologists who've been out there have found women's makeup containers and things from the 1930s. Allegedly, they found female Caucasian bones there, which were lost during World War II, but they were measured by people. I know that the University of Tennessee has this ghoulish, I think Chris Cunningham's daughter might be interested in this. I think she's interested in, one of his youngest daughters is interested in maybe like forensic crime stuff with the FBI and like dogs, I think, forensic dogs. And I know that they have a body farm at the University of Tennessee. They have this huge area at the University of Tennessee where people who, it's basically the main place you go to if you're learning about decomposition of bodies and sort of things like that. So if your body is donated to science, one place you might end up is at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, and they will throw your body out into the woods there, into this huge acreage that's got barbed wire fences, but it's for students to study how bodies decompose and things over years, months, days. But one of the top guys in the country for forensics examined the British who recovered this female Caucasian's bones did have scientists who took, or a coroner or something, who took good measurements of those bones. And apparently the guy from the University of Tennessee has examined all these notes, and he's pretty confident that it's a Caucasian female who is 5'11" or something like that. So not sure how many 5'11" females would have been on Nicobaroro Island before World War II started, other than Amelia Earhart. So that's kind of where I think. That's funny, Mini Pup. Amelia was captured by McCoy. Let's see. And what are we looking at? All right. Let's see. Is that a Rickenbacker back there? Is that a copy? That is back that way. That is a Rickenbacker 325. It is. It was not cheap, but I got one. Let's see. All right. Good question, Aaron. It's a Civ Pro. Aaron is now in law school, so that was ages ago for me. But Aaron asks, if Cooper were brought to justice, then where would he be hauled into court? Well, it would be, so venue. All right. So federally, anywhere where a crime takes place has proper venue and jurisdiction. Okay. So they actually discussed this in the Cooper case. It's actually in the FBI files, in the vault files, but they're discussing who's going to have jurisdiction when they catch this guy, which again, they had no reason to assume that they weren't going to catch the guy. But you've got the crime taking place in Washington State, Oregon, California, and Reno, Nevada. So you have 4 states where the crime technically took place. Even California, just flying over California, that was still, they could still have jurisdiction over it. But the jurisdiction was given to Seattle because that's where the money exchanged hands. Even though the hijacking started in Oregon, the actual crime itself of extortion, the handover of money took place in Washington. And that's why Seattle office has had jurisdiction over the case. So I would think it would be in whatever district court is. I don't know what that district, I guess whatever the district court is in Washington where Seattle is, that's where he would be hauled into court if he was found. Okay. McCoy was Fred Noonan. No, I hope not. Okay. James says, what is your opinion on D.B. Cooper's absolute age range? How young to how old? Well, hard to say. The problem with Cooper is that he's wearing sunglasses for a lot of the time. And if you think about your age, so much of your age is in your eyes, crow's feet, and things like that. So if you're wearing sunglasses, I always use the example of go to a sporting event or go to a golf course and look at men in their 30s, 40s, 50s who are wearing sunglasses. And, it's kind of hard to tell their age. I feel like that might be the hardest age to determine somebody is men between the ages of 40 and 55 or something, or 35 and 50 even. That's just it's hard to tell men's age at that time. So, or men at that age, it can be difficult. Obviously factors of life can age you. But I guess I get the sense that for me personally, I go back to Hal Williams a lot. All right. Now, Hal was the gate agent who took D.B. Cooper's ticket. Hal was 39 years old at the time. It was about to be 40. And Hal had already observed Cooper standing off to the side there and noted that he was not acting suspicious. Hal had training in security. So the government didn't want to. So that was the whole argument between who was going to pay for airport security back then. I mean, look, they had 130 hijackings in America in a 5-year period, but they were arguing who was going to pay for it, the airlines or the government. And eventually the airlines were like, look, if you train us, it was kind of a compromise. They said, look, if the FBI, the government can train our people to spot hijackers, potential hijackers, then I guess we'll just do that. So that was their compromise. And so people like Hal, who were gate agents, were mostly men who had training, some rudimentary training about what to look for in a hijacker, and they did catch a few people acting certain ways and things like that. But so Cooper did draw his notice a little bit because Cooper was kind of off by himself, but he didn't act weirdly enough to make him pull him out of line. But so he already was looking at Cooper for a little while. Then they came face to face when Cooper handed him his ticket. So, and Hal said that Hal, who's 39 years old, said that he thought Cooper was 50 years old. Now, imagine whatever age you are. I'm 40. Gosh, I guess, how old am I? I'm 42 now. And I'm trying to think that I'd have a hard time imagining a scenario where I could think that somebody was 10 years older than me, but they were actually younger than me, coming face to face with them. That seems unlikely to me. So I feel like Cooper was older than Hal Williams at least. So Hal was 39. So I think Cooper was in his 40s and possibly early 50s. But who knows? But yeah, I would say, I guess 35 to 60. I don't know. But it would be the absolute age range. But I just have a hard time going under Hal Williams' age. And also, and I think that people who are closest to the age of somebody can tell their age better, right? So I look at the passenger who sat one seat in front of Cooper on the other side of the plane in the aisle seat in row 17. That's Cord Harmsum Spreckle. He was 38, I believe. And he also pegged Cooper at 50 years old. So the men who were closest to his age thought he was 50-ish. So I would say late 40s probably is most likely. Okay. Were there any witnesses who saw Cooper walking into the airport? No, not at all. Okay. Michael Popick. Hello, Michael. He asks, I've always wondered, how did Cooper get to the airport? Somebody had to have helped him get there. Not sure how much the FBI looked into it. Oh, no, the FBI looked into it a great deal. They looked at buses. They interviewed cabbies to see if anybody knew anything. He just kind of appears there. That's the crazy thing about Cooper is just that he really does exist for like 5 hours and that's it. You know, as Himmelsbach says, we don't know who he was, where he came from, where he went. He just like miracles himself there into PDX. When he did, you know, Dennis Lisney was the first person to see him buying his ticket. But if you asked me how I think he got there, I am of the opinion that Cooper did not have an accomplice. If I had a gun to my head, I would say no. So, and really honestly, the one thing about Cooper is really try to put yourself in this person's shoes. Like just really think about it. These are the things that I think about at night, just laying around, you know, in the bed, just thinking, how would you do it? Because it's like this. People often talk about ancient history. When they talk about ancient history, there's a genre that's kind of called there's a YouTuber called Lindy Bage who's really good at this. He's a British guy. But then there's a guy named Metatron who does this. Scalagrim. There's all these great YouTubers who do ancient, I forget what the term is called, but basically, I guess we call it experimental archaeology or anthropology. So people are always wondering, oh, well, the Romans, we're not sure how the Romans would have carried their shields when they were just marching down the road. You know, the Romans didn't fight but one or 2 days out of the year. So how'd they carry their shields? Well, they were human beings. So whatever's comfortable for them would be comfortable for you. Right? So whatever's comfortable for you is comfortable for them. So that's kind of how I think about it. Humans are humans and humans do certain things. So how would you do it? How would you get to the airport? Remember, this is a different era too. There's no cell phones pinging your location. There's no, hidden, there's no CCTVs everywhere. So how would you do it? And if it was me, well, I would park my car somewhere, Vancouver or Portland, and just get a cab. Now, yeah, the FBI interviewed cabbies, but again, Cooper is Blindy McNobody, as Jude says. He's just a guy. I mean, how many men in suits did cabbies take back and forth? So that's kind of what I would say is I would just park somewhere and get a cab to the airport. Not that complicated. And there were buses to the airport too. That'd be a little more inconspicuous. Take a bus. So that's what I think. All right. Jeremy. All right. Did any copycats, hey, Mary Johns, did any copycats squid off the stairs, or do they all jump and then pull? Did their amount of jump experience correlate with how they jumped? Well, I don't know enough about LaPointe or Heinemann to know exactly what they did. Heinemann, though, the last time Heinemann was seen, the flight engineer, I think, actually peeked down the aisle and saw Heinemann going down the stairs backwards. Now, I don't think that means that doesn't necessarily mean that he exited the plane backwards. It just means that he went down the stairs backwards, which is probably how I would do it, I guess, just to be careful. But I know that Mac had done research. McNally, I don't see Mac in the chat, but I know McNally had intended to wait 5 or 10 seconds or something before pulling. I know that McCoy blacked out. So McCoy actually went into a spin. His duffel bag that he had clipped to his harness, shifted when he jumped, and it spun him around, and he actually blacked out, and he woke up a lot lower than he wanted to pull his chute. But I know that Rob Hetty, who was our best skydiver, he realized very quickly that the pilots had screwed him over. So Hetty gave the pilots an exact heading to follow to put him on the east side of, I guess it's Lake Tahoe or whatever lake is outside Reno. I forget what that lake is, but he wanted to land on the east side of the lake. And the pilots didn't follow his instructions. They actually shifted a few degrees off on purpose. And he realized when he jumped, I guess when he broke through the clouds or something, that he was on the west side of the lake. So he actually tried to, I forget what it's called when skydivers will tack. They'll tack, I guess is what it's called. I don't know what it's called, but they'll maneuver themselves. So he tried to see if he could get on the other side of the lake, but it was no doing. So they all did not squid. And I know Mark Meltzer likes the idea of Cooper squidding. And squidding is a good way to know if your parachute, I guess, is defective because it's going to open up or it's not. But I don't know about the idea of squidding. I don't know. Yeah. Jude mentions that Hetty went into a spiral as well. Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay. So let me go into something here that was asked by John Higgins, who is a member of our Facebook group. By the way, anybody watching, please go join. If you're not already, there it is there, the official DB Cooper group on Facebook. Please go join, all right? And if you're not subscribed, bloody hell, subscribe to this YouTube channel, for God's sakes. I'm almost at 1,000. When I get to 1,000 subs, I'm at 954 or something right now. When I get to 1,000 subs, the algorithms kick in for recommending me to other people, and it'll grow my YouTube page a lot. So if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. It's free. It costs nothing. You just push a button. All right. Anyway. All right. So yes, Hetty did jump at a very high speed. Not John Higgins, the snooker player. I don't know any John Higgins. Anyway. So, but John Higgins asked me, let me pull him up, what exactly he was asking about. Higgins is of the opinion that Cooper went in the river, and I really can't follow him on that. I have a real hard time getting there. So let's see. Higgins wanted me to address. Okay, so I see what he's saying. I've kind of had this idea recently about. Thank you, Darren, for subbing. I had this idea recently, just the other day, about the reasons why Cooper did not. Why Cooper didn't jump over the river. For one thing, the pilots said they weren't to Portland yet. which to them, Portland from 10,000 feet up is going to be the blob of lights that they see in the distance. So that's their only real gauge of where they are, really. So they said they weren't yet to Portland. Okay, they were in the suburbs outside of Portland, the northern suburbs. We have all these other things, but something that I came to think about was that the pilots, they did this maneuver. Okay, so as they approached Portland, they actually turned and went around the airport. So if you look here on this map here, it's kind of blurry, but the highlight is Victor 23. That's the line for Victor 23. All right. Now, if you see the black line there, that's where the plane was. Okay. So if you look at it there, you can kind of, so the FBI flight path map or the Air Force flight path map kind of has this connect the dots looking thing. It's kind of like a caveman drew it with a pen or something. So this flight, the map is kind of like connect the dots. In reality, of course, planes don't fly like that. So Chris Cunningham did a more accurate kind of flight. But you see these things here at the bottom that look like runways. That's PDX. So instead of, normally it would go right over PDX, Victor 23, but they actually flew around PDX. Now it's likely that they would have hand flown that. They were flying on autopilot for much of the time, but it seems like that they would have gotten off autopilot when they did all this stuff where they flew around the airport. Then they got back onto Victor 23. Let me see if I can show you a full map. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see if you have a big TV. I don't know, but you can see where they bend it there. They bent it to go around PDX, and then they got back on Victor 23. So my thought with that is, if Cooper had jumped while they were doing this maneuver, that would have been a notable thing. That they would have said, we were in our diversion around PDX when we felt the pressure bump. But they don't say that. Okay. So that's kind of another thing that I've thought about, is that because remember, the issue is we don't know exactly when Cooper jumped. We know when the oscillations took place, which is Cooper going down the stairs. That's at 8:11. But we don't know the exact time, 8:13, 8:14, maybe as late as 8:15, of when he actually jumps. And if you look here, it's, you can see there where the plane was at this time. So at 8:16, they were pretty much adjacent to PDX. So 8:14 is between 8:13 and 8:14 is kind of where I get the sense that he jumped, because they felt the oscillations. Then, according to Harold Anderson, they discussed the oscillations at 8:11. They discussed it for a few minutes, a couple minutes, not really sure. Then they felt the pressure bump. So I think if they were in the middle of this big turn around the airport, hand flying, when Cooper jumped, they would have said, hey, it happened when we were doing our diversion around the airport. But they don't say that. Okay. So that's one reason why I don't think, and so PDX, for those who don't know, is basically right on the river. It's right there on the river. So it's adjacent to the river. In fact, what's interesting is that land, the PDX did an expansion in the late 50s. The land that they bought to build the airport extension there by the river was owned by the Fazios. So the Fazios originally were on the Oregon side of the Columbia River, where they had their operations, but PDX gave them an offer they couldn't refuse. So they sold out their land, and they went across the river and bought all their land along the Columbia on the Washington side of the river. So kind of cool vortexy thing that the PDX airport used to be owned by the Fazios. But yeah, so that's kind of why I think that Cooper jumped before they made their diversion. Which I just get the sense, if you look at the map again, I just really get the sense that 8:13, 8:14 sounds about right. And that's where the FBI updated officially, updated in 2008, their drop zone for Cooper. It's no longer up by 8:11, or well, about 8:10 up there. You see where Lake Merwin's up there. They have shifted that. The FBI they kind of admitted that they made a mistake there back in the 70s, and Their FBI now believes that he jumped around orchards and that he landed, his boots would have touched the ground in a place called Hawkinson. All right. So that's kind of what the FBI think now, as of the 21st century. All right. So, okay. Did Orville Lyons, Jason Langseth, and Joseph Henry Johnston know each other? Who knows? Who knows about all these creeps? Okay. Did the description of the battery and the briefcase include the colors and or name? No. Tina just said it was a flashlight battery, which is one of these, I don't have a picture of it, but I thought I had a picture of it, but it's basically one of these larger kind of D-cell batteries from the 70s is really what we're working with. Okay. Oh, okay. So here's something interesting I'll point out for you guys. Oh, is there any chance that Mac will join you for one of these live streams? Yes, but we have to avoid the topic. We have to avoid the topics of Jimmy Hoffa and the Mafia. Mac won't talk about that kind of stuff. He's afraid of it. I don't blame him because Mac knows a lot about it. Okay. Burger Guitars. Hello, Burger. Says, do you think Cooper picked Dan Cooper from the comic to be cute, or was it a random name? Do you think Cooper said he wanted to go to Mexico because it was the opposite place as Canada? Okay, so the first question, did he pick Dan Cooper from the comic to be cute? I don't know. I mean, probably not. I mean, Dan Cooper is not a wildly uncommon name. So, I mean, it's a very generic name. If we look at the names that the other copycats, used, McNally chose, what was it? Robert Wilson, I think. Robert Wilson was the name McNally chose. McCoy chose T. Johnson, which is interesting. Chris Brower found out recently that a hijacker in 1971, I think, used the alias T. Johnson as well. And that makes sense to me that McCoy would also use T. Johnson, because McCoy famously was writing a term paper. He was a criminal justice major at BYU. He was writing a term paper in the spring of 72 on skyjackings, on recent skyjackings and how you stop them. And that's how he got interested in Cooper. And that's how he knew so much about Cooper. Not that he was Cooper, but he just studied Cooper. And he was thinking, I could do this myself. But that would be interesting if he chose. It makes sense to me now that he chose T. Johnson, because another hijacker who he had probably studied for his term paper also used the alias T. Johnson. So that's kind of interesting. Okay, let's see. Okay, what else? Oh, yeah. So Robert Wilson, T. Johnson, LaPointe used John Shane as his alias. So these are just very generic names. And Daniel Cooper is a very generic name as well. I don't think Cooper was he didn't seem to be very, very cute physically or emotionally. I don't think he was just into playing games like that. He was very cautious. So maybe it's like Marla Cooper likes to, I like Marla, but I've talked to her several times, but Marla likes to say that LD Cooper had Dan Cooper comics in his room. He's a 40-year-old man. He's not having, that seems too convenient for me. But let's just say you were into Dan Cooper comic books as a grown man, which is weird. But let's just say you were into them, and then you use Dan Cooper comics. Well, that just gives somebody potentially ammunition to say, oh, wait, Ryan looks like the sketch. Ryan was a paratrooper in World War II, and Ryan likes those Dan Cooper comics. So you're trying to avoid all these sort of things. So I don't think it has anything to do with the comic. Very interesting, but I don't think so. Your second question, though, Berger, do you think Cooper said he wanted to go to Mexico because it was the opposite place as Canada? No. I think he mentioned Mexico because, for one thing, he needed them to fly south. And assuming he wanted to jump near Portland, he was trying to give them the maximum time in the air before they realized he was gone, right? Because you don't want because the thing about this, if they knew Cooper jumped when he jumped, well, they would have just said, oh, alarm bells, and they would have shut down Clark County, all roads shut off. And it would have been a chaos. It's what happened to the copycats, even though a bunch of the copycats weren't caught, even though they knew where the copycats jumped, they knew when the copycats jumped, and they set off all the alarm bells, and they tried to shut down all the roads in and out of those places and things like that. So Cooper didn't want that. So Cooper says, I want them to be in the air as long as possible. And what's interesting is if you were to look up in a book, because I Googled this ages ago, I looked up like the maximum range for a 727-100, and it's almost precisely the distance from Seattle to Mexico City. Exactly. But that's just, if you looked it up. So maybe he was trying to think of what's the farthest this plane can fly. But of course, the wrench in there was that they had to refuel. They would have had to have refueled twice to get to Mexico City, flying with the gear down, with the flaps down. So Cooper didn't seem to get that or something. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Cooper is so freaking incongruent. So many times, he seems to know things, but doesn't know things. And it's, hard to say. Okay. But I think Mexico just makes sense because to me, it's the farthest away that he thought the plane could go without having to refuel. Okay. So he wanted them to not think he wanted them to think he was still on the plane. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. D.B. Cooper smoked 7 cigarettes on the plane, clearly a smoker. However, do you think he was a drinker given he spilled his drink early and did not order another, even though he had several hours to order another? Well, James, here's my thought on the drink. Okay. The only person who mentions him spilling his drink is Bill Mitchell. And he mentioned that to the FBI as soon as he was interviewed getting off the plane. He says, well, I don't remember much about him, but I know Bill says that Cooper first came to his attention because he spilled his drink. Okay. Like, oh, who's this klutz over here? Right. And Flo does not mention Cooper spilling his drink. If Flo had to come clean up his mess, then I think she would have mentioned that. So what that tells me is somebody who has spilled a drink or two on an airplane before. Thankfully, when I spilled my drink on an airplane, it was just ice left. I'd already drank it down. So, and it didn't cause a huge mess. So my guess is that Cooper had probably drank most of his cocktail when he spilled it. So my guess is just a theory, a thought, is that what he spilled was ice, which is easy to clean up, right? You can clean up ice pretty easily, and you don't need to, have a stewardess come back there with a big rag and clean up your mess, right? So I think he probably just spilled his ice, which tells me he did just down it. But the reason he did not have another drink, this is my thought, and here's the beauty of having a guy like Martin McNally, who actually did this sort of thing, as a guy I could just send a text message to and ask him. And I remember texting him a year and a half ago or whatever, just saying, hey, did you drink anything on the plane? And he wrote back and said, not after I started the hijacking. And I said, okay, well, why? He said, well, I was afraid of being poisoned. So to me, that makes the most sense, is that Cooper, I don't think it's a coincidence that after he becomes the hijacker, he refuses all offers of refreshments. Tina said that she offered him, do you want a drink? Do you want something to eat? He said no. Several times she asked him. So, and what's interesting is we do have instances where hijackers were poisoned, or not poisoned, but drugged, I guess would be the better term, but they were drugged by stewardesses. In the famous case of, gosh, what is his name? Somebody in the chat might can help me. I forget his name exactly, but the kid Glenn Tripp, there we go. Thank you, Jerome. Yeah, Glenn Tripp. They fed Glenn Tripp, the hijacker, who was later killed in a second hijacking. They gave Glenn Tripp some Valium or something that a stewardess had. She kept putting it in his drink. And the more he drank, the more loopier he got. And he kept lowering, even though he didn't need to lower his hijacking demands, he kept lowering his hijacking demands. He wanted $2 million, and he wanted $1 million. And as he's getting loopier and loopier, he wants $100,000. And this is probably in the golden age of skyjacking, probably the greatest moment in all of the golden age of hijacking is his Glenn Tripp's final demand, verbatim, was, "I just want 3 cheeseburgers and a head start in a car." 3 cheeseburgers and a head start. Doesn't get much better than that. So, Nicole, are you bringing your money bag to CooperCon? Hell yes, I am. And you all can feel how lumpy and heavy that son of a gun is. So yes, the money bag behind me is coming. And so is Little Coop. Little Coop's coming. Hopefully nobody steals Little Coop. All right. Let's see. Well, okay. Nikki, you're saying that Nikki's in the chat saying that squidding worked fine for the cargo and men in the Air America drop test. Well, they're not squidding. Their chute's being pulled on a static line, right? In fact, maybe I've got that video here that we can show everybody. Yeah, there's that video there. Hopefully you can see the parachutes. See, they have a line that opens the chutes automatically. So it's a little different. Like, they're not opening their chutes. Their chutes are being opened for them. So squidding would be a little different, I guess, than that. But I get your point, though. It's the same action, so it's probably fine. Did the FBI actually get the cheeseburgers for Glenn Tripp? No. They lured him off the plane and they arrested him. He comes back, I think, a couple years later, and they end up shooting him, sadly, killing him in Seattle, I think. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, yeah. So I don't think Cooper. Yeah, he was not a drunk. He was not a heavy drinker, because if he was a heavy drinker, he probably would have continued to drink to take the edge off. You look at who I consider the godfather of this whole heist, Paulsini. Paulsini, who did his hijacking 13 days before Cooper, was legitimately drunk, and that's how they were able to. That's how the crew were able to overpower him. Is he just kept drinking? He was an alcoholic. So, and we have other hijackers who were drinking and got drunk. The hijacking out of Birmingham, where the 3 black men from Detroit hijacked that plane and threatened to crash it into the nuclear facility in Oak Ridge, they got into the booze and got roaring drunk. So other hijackers did that too. I'm trying to think. There are a few other instances too where copycats were just drunk. Okay. But I don't think Cooper did that. I think he may have wanted one to take the edge off, perhaps, but I don't think he was a big drinker. And like I said, he refused refreshments, probably because the same reason I would, maybe you would, is I don't want to be drugged by anybody. I don't want to take any chances. Which is one reason I do think that when Cooper went to the bathroom, when they landed in Seattle, Cooper famously goes to the bathroom for a couple minutes. He was a middle-aged man. He probably had to take a leak, but he probably also drank some water out of the sink. That's what I would do. He's probably thirsty. He'd been smoking. He smoked 7 cigarettes in the previous hour or two, so he's probably thirsty. Yeah, he could have, if he wanted to drink, he could have requested things. And Nikki says he could have requested things in a way to ensure he couldn't be drugged, probably. But yeah. All right. Yeah, no, I don't think they got him. I don't think they got him the cheeseburgers, Jerome. Packer Jack says, "What is the truth as to the FBI still working the case, possibly testing the tie themselves, and recently investigating McCoy?" Well, yes, but the FBI has always said that if you have a parachute, a body, or the money, then they will entertain your call. They'll come check it out. Dan Greider lured me into Dan Greider lured me into an interview a while back. Okay, we'll just do this. I'm not pleased with Dan Greider right now. He lured me into an interview under the pretext that, I've not been in the vortex. He was in a plane crash, Dan Greider, and we're all happy he's alive. But he was in a plane crash, a pretty serious plane crash. And he's been out of the vortex, he's told me, for a year. I've not paid attention to it. Why don't you come on my show and we will discuss the events of the past year. He goes, get you a list of all the recent suspects or the suspects and just have a list ready to go. He goes, you can promote CooperCon on here. We'll talk about your YouTube channel and we'll give you some props. And then I only need you for 10 minutes. Then that's it. I said, okay, Dan. I've never met Dan Grider. I don't have a lot of respect for him as a Cooper researcher, but he's never personally done anything to me. I will give everybody a chance until you screw me over somehow or prove yourself to be a piece of crap to me. Okay. Well, Dan Grider lured me onto his show. It wasn't a live show. He's like, we're not doing it live. I said, well, okay. And I trusted him. I said, well, look, will you send me a copy of this when we're done here? He goes, yeah, I'll send you a copy of it. I said, okay. Now I screen recorded it just because people had told me not to trust him. I screen recorded it, but the screen recording didn't record any audio. So there, no audio. No, Nikki Blevins will not be handling streaming for CooperCon. You can forget about that. So that's another guy who's pissed me off lately. But anyway, so Grider says, oh, you can come on and do all this other stuff. And he goes, well, I'll send you a copy of the interview when we're done. So I said, great. Now I still recorded it. Okay. But I didn't record the audio. Well, during this interview, he goes, oh, we have Ryan Burns and tell us a little bit about how you got into Cooper. I mentioned it, yada, yada. Then he goes, Dan says, well, Ryan, tell me a list of suspects. Just name them off. And my little spider sense in my brain goes, it's kind of weird. What's he up to? And okay, thank you. Nikki's kidding. But I worry about you sometimes, Nikki. I can't tell. Anyway, so I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. So then I list off, all of these people, all the suspects. And then all of a sudden, Grider's just changes his mood. And he's like, oh, well, you think you're so smart, huh? Well, let me tell you something. He goes, and he just starts attacking me for like just out of the blue, completely normal interview, just hits me, starts saying, well, let me tell you something. He goes, last year, I found D.B. Cooper's parachute. This case is over. You owe it to everybody on your channel to tell them that this case is over and that yada, 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 and that Rick McCoy had his DNA taken, and which is true. The FBI did take Richard McCoy's DNA. And I explained to his audience, which will never see this, and you will never see this full interview. I would be shocked. He keeps saying he's going to put it up on his channel. He will not. What Dan Grider's doing, he's going to, I make videos. Okay. You've seen my videos I make. You chop up pieces and things, right? Well, Dan has these hours long documentaries about the McCoy stuff, right? Dan is going to chop me up, listing out all these suspects and saying, oh, he thinks he's the smart guy, or all these he's just saying all these suspect names, but they're not mentioning McCoy, the real one, that sort of stuff, right? Yes, Nikki says he did the same thing at CooperCon a couple of years ago. He stuck a camera in their face and said, who do you think Cooper was, right? So he's just getting stuff for his documentary, and he used me for it. But yeah, he's not going to post the full thing because I called him out on, he won't post me because I called him in a lie. Okay. His parachute, I was going to do I don't know. Part of me is wondering okay. I will restrain myself because I will save my beat down on him and why he is a liar and a fraud. I will save it for when he uses me in his video against my consent. Now, Grider is going to be debunked in a humiliating fashion. The problem is Grider has he's got 70,000 subs or something. I mean, for a long time, I thought these were Russian bots or something to have 70,000 subs, but his comment section has hundreds and hundreds of comments. I mean, but Dan Grider's claims are very remarkably debunked. And I think one reason he wanted to insult me in his video is because I have the why McCoy was not Cooper video, which has changed a lot of people's minds. Because see, a lot of people watch Deep Family Secrets or whatever, his documentaries, and like every other documentary, you watch the Recca documentary. If you're not well versed on Cooper, you'll think it's Recca. You read what is it? The Blevins book, whatever it's called. I forget what it's called. Whatever, brain farting. But the Blevins book. If you read that, you think it's Kenny Christensen. You know, no offense to Packer. You read Where Was Skip? You're gonna think it's Skip. You know, that's the nature of these things. Now, for one thing, I'll say this different about Packer Jack Lindbach is he never says that Skip Hall's Cooper. Okay, so he's never made that claim. He's like, he's a person of interest. Make of it what you will. Okay, and that's how you're supposed to do it. But Dan Grider is a legitimate grifter with this stuff. Yeah, but he told me that for one thing, he says that 8 FBI cars showed up in North Carolina to take the parachute that he found, the Cooper's parachute, which is not Cooper's parachute. I debunked that in 5 minutes. Within 5 minutes of the release of Deep Family Secrets 2, Volume 2 last year, we debunked that quickly. But he says that the FBI came and got the parachute and that they took McCoy's DNA. And I explained why they took McCoy's DNA. I mean, it makes sense to me why they wanted it. Okay. Because back in the early 2000s, and I explained this during the Dan Grider interview, which you'll never see because he does not want his viewers hearing why he's a fraud. But I explained why they did this. I explained that in the early 2000s, they wanted DNA from Sheridan Peterson, Fred Catalano, Jason Langseth, and Richard McCoy. Well, they didn't get it from Catalano for whatever reason. They got it from Peterson, they got it from Langseth, and they tried to get it from McCoy, but the FBI agent warned the Salt Lake City FBI agent who had to go get this DNA, said, look, we did kill their husband and father 30 years ago in a shootout. So they're probably not going to be too receptive. Sure enough, we have a 302 where they call Karen McCoy and she says, well, it's not my problem that you guys can't solve a 30-year-old hijacking, and she hangs up on them. Okay. So that's what I think is this new case agent is just dotting his I's and crossing his T's. And that's another thing. Dan Grider goes, oh, did you know? Because I mentioned that the new case agent was a man. And Grider goes, oh, well, you're wrong there. It's a woman. And I'm like, I don't think so. Now, a woman, I'm sure, did come and take the parachute. But again, a North Carolina FBI agent is not a NORJAC case agent. There's only one NORJAC case agent. It was Larry Carr up until 2022. He retired, and there's another one. I don't know his name, actually, but it's a guy. All right. So it's not. All right. Enough about Grider. That made me want to puke. But anyway. All right. So something new that I want to bring up, courtesy of Flyjack, of all people. I have said for a while that I don't think that the Dynamite, quote, Dynamite sticks were road flares, because road flares are today, if you go buy a road flare at the AutoZone or whatever, they're going to be about 15 to 18 inches long. They're long, so they don't burn your hand. They're like a Roman candle, right? They're not going to burn your hand. Well, Flyjack found on eBay or somewhere, someone selling old 1960s and 70s road flares. And the image that the person posted on eBay or wherever had a ruler. So I took that photo. So Flyjack emailed me this and said that, hey, check this out. So these road flares Let's see. There you go. Put it up there. So this is a Photoshop that I did, but I took the ruler and I Photoshopped it. And you can see there, I took 6 inches. So those road flares are all about 6 inches long, which is the length of the Dynamite sticks for DB Cooper. About 6 inches long is what, according to Tina. So these road flares from the 60s are 6 inches long. So I will not be saying that anymore. I don't think it means that that does not mean that they were road flares, but it means that I'm not going to make that argument anymore that they couldn't be road flares because of their length, right? So, but now those do have writing on them. That's pretty extensive writing. So, Tina said nothing about writing, but I guess Cooper could have painted them red or something if he wanted to. So possibly they were road flares. Okay. So the argument of the length is no longer, that's debunked thanks to Flyjack. So there we go. Okay. All right. Let's see. Is there any audio recording of DB Cooper's voice? No. As James mentions there, Chicken Dave, that they did back then, and they had a tape loop. So every 30 minutes, the audio of the black box would re-record. So Rose Ellis, hey Rose, why are you never invited to these things? What do you mean, Rose? If you're subscribed to my channel, you should see the notifications. Subscribe and click the bell, and it'll pop up on your phone whenever I'm doing a live. So it's good to see you, Rose. All right, but no, so Cooper's voice, it's a shame. We would have Cooper's voice, at least briefly. We would have him telling the crew to slow down on there. We wouldn't have a lot of his voice, maybe, unless maybe, I don't think Cooper ever spoke directly to the pilots until Tina was sent to the front. So I think that Cooper only ever talks to the pilots directly without Tina as an intermediary twice. Once when he calls up there and says, I can't get the stairs down, slow down. And then second, when they call back and say, are you okay? And he says, I'm fine. And that's it. That's the last they hear of him. That was at 8:05. That's the last contact, as they like to say. Okay. So moving on. This guy says, DB Cooper himself on the chat says, I really want Tim Collins to play the Dwayne Weber audio for anyone who heard Coop's voice. Well, I mean, if they forgot what he looked like within a couple of years, I'm not sure if they would remember what his voice sounds like 53 years later, especially because he was apparently talking very lowly, and Tina says he was whispering in her ear the majority of the time, right? So there's that. Yeah, Point Nemo says, I don't think poor quality audio of his voice would help the investigation. No, not at all. Not at all. All right. Let's see what else we have here. Anything else? I've got 67 people watching. Hello. Ask me some questions. All right. Darren says, how confident are you that DB Cooper was ex-military? As ex-military myself, I feel like the part one of hijacking is military, like part two, not so much. Yeah. Well, just the law of averages would say that Cooper was military or ex-military, because again, they had the draft back then. How many times, very rarely were people not in the military who were men back then. I mean, that would be uncommon, especially for a guy his age range. Let's just say that Cooper is 48. The FBI, their average age, the FBI believed Cooper was approximately 48 years old. Okay. So 48 years old in 1971 puts him being born 1923. That means Cooper's 18 years old when Pearl Harbor happens. All right. Everybody who was 18 years old and a man served in World War II, who was physically able. In fact, I'm always thinking about in Band of Brothers, one of the old men in the documentary about Easy Company, Hunter vs. Airborne, says that there were guys, young men in their town who were 4F. That means that you have flat feet or something that keeps you from joining the military. But there were young men who killed themselves because they couldn't serve in World War II. So because of the shame of it. So, I mean, Cooper, if he wasn't in World War II, then he was in Korea, or, most men were in the military back then. So I think Cooper was military. And yeah, you make a good point. There really is part 1 and part 2 of Cooper's hijacking. He becomes very disorganized at a certain point. Once they bring the money aboard, I'm not going to say he gets flustered, but he becomes preoccupied with the money bag. He literally spends, Tina says that when they took off from Seattle, which is at 7:36, that he's still messing with with the money bag. Okay. He starts working on the money bag as soon as Tina is still ferrying the parachutes onto the plane. Okay. So she ferries, it's my understanding that she ferries one backpack. Then she brings the 2 chest parachutes at the same time because they're small. Then she brings the last parachute, a backpack. So a backpack, two small chutes, then a backpack. And she says that by the time that she brought the last backpack onto the plane, Cooper had already opened up the chute and was messing around, cutting the shroud lines and things. So, and Tina's done bringing the parachutes on about 6 o'clock, 6:05. So this guy literally Cooper is literally spending an hour and a half messing with that money bag. So I think that kind of distracted him. Rose says, is Mac a vet? Absolutely. McNally was in the Navy aviation for 3 years. He was on a plane called a Neptune, which was a chasing plane, a plane that would look for submarines. Okay. So Mac had a lot of time in the military. And Mac has PTSD pretty badly from his military service as well, which correlates with McCoy, Hetty, LaPointe. I'm not sure what Heineman's problem was. I think Heineman had a mental disorder of some sort, but the others had PTSD. But think about this. If we're talking about whether Cooper's a military veteran, I think he was a military veteran, and I think he was a military veteran who was in the aviation side of the military. Because check this out. So of our copycats of my canonical 6 copycats, all of them were military aviation to some degree-ish. So Heineman was he was a B-17 crewman in World War II. He's a radio operator on a B-17. Melvin Fisher had trained to be a pilot in World War II, but I guess he washed out. He ended up on a bomber crew. Okay. Richard LaPointe was a helicopter gunman in Vietnam. He had parachute training that way. McCoy flew helicopters in Vietnam. Rob Hetty was in the paratroopers in Vietnam. And McNally spent 3 years, has 2,000-ish flight hours on a Neptune flying up and down the West Coast. So all these guys, all of them were military veterans with aviation. So that would indicate to me that Cooper, just by the odds, would also be a military veteran with aviation-ish service. Okay. Okay. Big Cat is saying map of Cooper's landing zone with search areas marked out. You want to see that again? Okay. Yeah. Let me pull this up. It is a cool map. I found this map when I was writing the book. It's a map that shows the military search area. Here, let me pull it up here. Pretty cool map. There we go. So that's their grid, and you can see this is the Army search. You can see where they're writing like phase 1, phase 2, B troop, A troop. this is the cavalry, right? So it was the 3rd Armored Cavalry was who did the quote adventure training down there. And so being cavalry, they are divided up into troops. So I guess A troop was up there and B troop was down there. So you can kind of see their daily search grids of where they searched. And I'm trying to see on this map how far down it goes. Not too far down. But yeah. Anyway, all right. So there's that map for those who are curious to see what the army search map looked like. Okay. Okay. Hello, Brad. Well, yeah, we don't count Cini. Cini is the wild card there. Well, for one thing, Cini's not a copycat, but Cini is in the same vein as so there were 16 people who tried to do copycat hijackings. I have 6 who I call my canonical 6 because because those are the ones who actually got far enough to get the money and to be prepared to jump. Okay. Cini got some money, not fully what he wanted, and never made it that far. So he was a real klutz. So the ones who weren't klutzish enough to actually make it that far were all veterans. So it's hard to count Cini. But Cini is the great irony, though, is that I am of the opinion that Cini is who came up with this. I think Cooper was a copycat. It's so too close in time. So I do think Cooper was a Cini copycat. So it is weird that the progenitor of all of this heist is a guy who never put on a parachute in his life. He just had the capacity to have divergent thinking. So it's bizarre. So, it could be Cooper wasn't one of those guys too. Yeah. So that's the weird part about it. Okay. Let's see. Do you know if the trash cans at the airport were searched? I don't know that, actually. That's a good question. I've never seen that. Actually, wait a second. Interesting, actually. I might, for some reason, I think they did. I'll have to get back to you on that, Winston. Something in my brain is thinking about that. I'm remembering something. Look, I ought to show y'all my Cooper files here. Gosh, I've got how many files do I have in this file folder? Let's see. Let me check this. Yeah, so my DB Cooper file folder has 4,631 files in it in 86 different folders. So somewhere in there, I feel like there's something about Cooper, about them searching for that. All right. Does Cooper's supposed age make him older than all the copycats? No. So weirdly enough, Heinemann was 49 years old and Melvin Fisher was 48. All the others were young men, all in their 20s. But those two were, yeah. All right. Is Bill Radicek still alive? Yes, David Triol, he is still alive. And I'm sure wherever he is right now, it's probably past his bedtime, but I'm not sure if he sleeps in a yellow sweater, but I guarantee he was probably wearing a yellow sweater at some point today. He loves his yellow sweaters. What were the witness age estimations for those two? Nikki's asking. Yeah, so I've got that somewhere, Nikki. So I think I'll need to do a video on this at some point. So I FOIA'd Melvin Fisher's hijacking. I've got Heinemann's FBI files, and I've got Melvin Fisher's. They're supposed to be getting me LaPointe's pretty soon, but I've got Melvin Fisher's. And man, Melvin Fisher FBI files would make us drool, okay, to be so jealous of them. I believe let me try to find that. I believe that the Melvin Fisher, I want to say that in the Melvin Fisher hijacking, in the FBI files for Fisher, that, gosh, bear with me. I've got it somewhere, but I'm sorry, folks. I can't find it. Again, my files are all crazy, but I believe, okay, so we have eyewitness. We have 10 eyewitnesses for Cooper. Okay. We have the 3 stewardesses. We've got the 2 guys at PDX, Hal Williams and Dennis. Then we have 5 passengers. We have Bill, Spreckle, Gregory, Lebissoniere, and Nancy House. Okay, so we have 10. I believe that the Heinemann files I think there's 52 different eyewitnesses describing this guy. So we have a huge variance of witness. I think it's like 52. And some of the things that I was able to find out, something like 80% of them got within 2 inches of his height. So they were pretty good about his height. But Fisher was mostly described as being late 40s, early 50s. So they got his age right. Heinemann, they said anywhere from 40 to 50. Heinemann was 50. Okay. So Jerome says, didn't Heinemann walk up and down the plane? Yes. So did Melvin Fisher. Melvin Fisher was walking up and down the aisles, drinking from a bottle of Maalox, according to the witnesses, complaining about his stomach the whole time. Who knows? But he was just drinking this crazy Maalox up and down the aisle. And Heinemann walked up and down the aisle a lot too. Mean mugging passengers, sticking guns in their guts and things. Kind of unpleasant. Yet sometimes Heinemann could be pleasant though. He was kind of all over the place. But yeah, Melvin Fisher though he was older. And but yeah, the age estimations for them are pretty good. And remember, we talk about McCoy looking older than we look at McCoy these days, and you look at McCoy's photographs, and you go, well, McCoy looked like a guy who was, this photo here of McCoy. I mean, just looking at this photograph, I don't know, because his hairline, you would think that guy is late 30s, maybe 40s even. Yet, I don't believe any of the eyewitnesses to McCoy put him above 30 years old. Maybe one might have said 30, but all of them said late 20s when McCoy was 27 or 28 at the time. So, yeah, you would think McCoy was in his 40s, but all the eyewitnesses to McCoy said he was in his 20s. So now there is some thought that people who knew McCoy said that he aged terribly, like overnight. They said once he got arrested, he just really looked pretty terrible. And in fact, if you look at the photo of him, of his mugshot, check this out. So compare his mugshot to that photo I just showed of him. So here's his actual mugshot of McCoy when he was arrested, when they came to get him. If you look at his mugshot, he doesn't look as old as in that other photograph. Okay. So he looks a little younger there. His hairline's short, but he looks a little bit younger than the other stuff. Yeah, in this other photo, it's hard to tell. This is another mugshot photo of him. I would love that. I should FOIA for this photograph. I'd like to see it in its fullness. Yeah, they messed up McCoy's height pretty badly, the eyewitnesses. And I think it has to do with, he apparently had short legs. And you can see that in this photograph, that his legs, his torso is longer than his legs. So I think that kind of threw people off when they looked at him. But yeah, I think McCoy seems like he aged a good bit. It is a better photograph we can look at. Yeah, this is a good one. This is him. A while, at some point after he's arrested. That guy looks like he's in his 40s, but does this guy? I don't think so. So you can see that some weariness had bit at his bones after being arrested for a skyjacking. So I don't blame him, I guess. So let's see. Where does Bill Radachek think Cooper jumped? I don't know. I have no idea. Bill Radachek probably, goes along with, if I asked him, he'd probably say Ariel or somewhere, but that's just him, repeating what the FBI determined or what Northwest determined, of course. Maybe after he reads my book, he'll change his mind on that. All right. Let's see. Other questions. William Coolidge. Hello, William. Nice last name there. Calvin Coolidge, an underrated president, by the way. I'm new to digging into this case big time. I'm a former prosecutor. Hello, so am I. So I'm not new to digging into evidence. I want to say I've been impressed with your channel. Oh, thank you. It wasn't a question. No goofball theories. Well, I'm debunking the goofball theories. Not sure what I'm going to do next. But I mean, I made those last two videos about Cooper, the flight crew being on it, and about the Cooper never jumping, because those come up repeatedly. And case in point, on Reddit right now, some guy was like, "Oh, I think the crew was in on it. I think Bill Radachek was the skyjacker." And I'm able to say, "Hey, watch my video," and they can watch it instead of me having to type out all this crap. I can just point them to my videos and say, "Watch this." Okay. So not sure I think my next video, I don't know, Blevins has kind of made me angry lately. So I might make a video debunking Kenny Christensen, but the next one's probably going to be how we know roughly where Cooper jumped. So was McNally the only other hijacker who had a chance of getting away with it and not living his life in Honduras, avoiding bounty hunters? Yeah. If Mac had not had an accomplice, he probably gets away with it. Yeah. Because I don't think that there was anything tying him to that skyjacking until his accomplice admitted it. Okay. That's what I think. Mac, we love you, Mac, but Mac is still a talker. You could call Mac on the phone. He'll talk to you all day long. I love it. He's the best. I can talk all day long. Mac can talk all day long. Me and Mac have had like 5-hour conversations on the phone. So Mac likes to talk. Yes, and Nikki says yes. Mac would have done it again and likely been caught. Yeah, probably second time. But no, Mac's the only one who I think could have got away with it. I think if he had landed with the money, if he wasn't wearing a snap belt that broke, if he was wearing a real normal belt, Mac might get away with it. Because in that instance, I don't know why his accomplice turned himself in, but anyway, if I was the farmer, would I keep Mac's money? Well, good question there. If I was the farmer, would I keep Mac's money? Gosh, well, I mean, so this is what landed in I forget the guy's name, Vern or Elliot or something. This is what landed in his yard. Okay, and was found by his grandson. Let's see. This is the photograph of Mac's bag. Here we go. So this is what they delivered Mac's $500,000 in. Was in this American Airlines pouch. And Mac put that loop at the top through his belt buckle. I usually have that photograph somewhere. Let me pull that photograph. Let me pull up Mac's drawing that he drew for me. Let's see. Where is the McNally drawing? There it is. So I asked Mac to draw out how he jumped, and Mac texted this picture to me. So this is drawn by McNally himself. I hope he still has that. I how to have him mail that to me. But yeah, Mac Pirate 72. So if you look at it, he took his belt off and then looped that top loop through his belt. Okay, which is pretty smart. That's a good way to do it. But his belt was not stitched together. His belt was like had snaps on it. So his belt snapped off, and that's how he lost the money. So pretty clever, but anyway, okay. Did any of the other hijackers have money separated from their jump? No. So Rob Hetty wore if I can pull up what Hetty was wearing. So Rob Hetty, in my AI version of Rob Hetty was wearing, now this is what AI spit out for what Rob Hetty was wearing, but Rob Hetty, when he went on the plane, Rob Hetty was wearing military clothes, a fishing vest, and a hood, like a lynch mob hood. And he was already wearing his parachute underneath his jacket. But he had a fishing vest on. And that is what he stuffed his money in. In fact, I believe that Rob Hetty got $250,000. And I believe he had to leave like 35. No. Rob was given $200,000, but it could only fit 180,000 or maybe 160,000 in his vest. So he actually left like $40,000 on the plane, which is interesting. So he jumped like that. McCoy brought a duffel bag with him that could hook up onto his D-rings on his parachute. So he had a duffel bag with him. I don't know how LaPointe. I will learn. LaPointe is really mysterious, so I'm really looking forward to getting those FBI files on LaPointe, so I can learn about him. I don't know how he secured it to himself, but Heinemann, I don't know either. But Heinemann did make it down with the money. Okay, so because the money was recovered. In fact, we have a photograph here of Heinemann's money. Where is it? Let's see. I have a photograph of the Heinemann money once they recovered it. I'm trying to find that photograph. Gosh, bear with me. Well, sorry. Good. This is bad podcast, people, but hey, y'all are hanging with me. Trying to find that photograph of the Heinemann money. Dadgum. Okay. Well, there it is. There we go. Yeah, this is the briefcase that was delivered in. They found it. There we go. Yep. So Heinemann's was in a briefcase, and they recovered it in 1973. It's my belief that Heinemann told them where the money was eventually. I'm not sure about that. Flyjack will probably kill me, but the FBI have never said how they found the money. But my guess is that Heinemann hid it somewhere and maybe got some time off of his sentence by telling them where it was. Mary John's, Ryan, if you found DBV, I don't know what you're saying. Okay. Okay. Mary John's. Yes. Would I keep the money? No, probably not. I'm a law-abiding citizen. But again, if you have $500,000, that's the equivalent of like $3 million today. If you found that in your front yard, it'd be tempting. And that is some thought about the Cooper money, is that because I do think there's a good chance that Cooper lost his money in the jump, and maybe it was found by somebody who never talking about deep family secrets. Maybe I don't know. That could explain something. I don't know, but maybe Cooper's money was found by somebody too. and they kept it. Okay. Yeah. Rose says, my front yard, finders keepers. Yeah. Well, I guess the problem is, Rose, that legally you would be in possession of stolen property. And that's actually something that the FBI had to put out there in a press release. They said, look, if you have some of Cooper's money and you want to turn it in, we will not prosecute you for possession of stolen property. So that's actually something that they had to put out there to the public. So yeah, you would be in possession of stolen property. Jerome says, if Hetty didn't have a bumper sticker on his car, could he have gotten away with it too? Probably. I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody. Hetty didn't even like. Again, as I've said before, Hetty does not have an alias for us to look at, because Hetty jumped a gate and ran onto the tarmac of the airport there in Reno. A 727 was deboarding from the aft stairs, and Hetty saw it and ran just, Leroy Jenkins, that meme, right? Hetty goes charging up there with his hood on, with a 357 Magnum of all things. Now, Hetty had only been back from Vietnam like 2 weeks, I think. So his head was all scrambled. But he runs on there to a plane that's, getting off. So Hetty really didn't have any passengers as hostages. He just had the flight crew and the cabin crew, the stewardesses. Okay. So I don't believe Hetty had any passengers as hostages, because they had just unloaded. Let's see. At least Cooper was a paying customer. Yeah. I always joke about McNally being such a troll, that McNally bought a round trip ticket. And when he was in prison, he wrote a letter to the president of American Airlines saying, hey, I want my money back. I want a refund. I only used half of my round trip ticket. What a troll. We love you, Mac. Let's see. Ryan, if you found DB Cooper and his money in the woodshed, would you keep them? Well, Clara did, of course. Yeah, preposterous story. Okay. Is there a legal way to make the museum give up the cord for testing? Uncle Jim, you're talking about the cord or the card? I'm not sure what you're asking about. If you're talking about the shroud lines, that's in FBI custody. So we can't test those unless they wanted to do it. Could Cooper have thought he would save time and trouble by having it delivered already in a knapsack rather than bringing his own and having to pack it? Yeah, again, if they're going to give you $200,000, well, you're going to assume they're going to give you the knapsack you asked for, right? Have I seen, hello, Retro Ref. Subscribe, Retro Ref. I don't think you're a subscriber. Have you seen the DB Cooper episode of Quincy? Quincy, it was murder. It was a murder. I've not seen the DB Cooper episode of it. Okay. Do you think DB filed his fingerprints? Yeah. I don't know if he filed them, but he probably could have put glue on them or something. Yeah, because I don't think it's a coincidence that the only fingerprints that were really partial fingerprints found on the plane were the ones next to Cooper's seat, right? So, and again, as I've said a million times before, I've talked to FBI agents who worked the case in 1971, and I asked them, did guys back then put glue on their fingers? And they did. Zodiac claimed to have done that too. Berger says, have I ever seen the Pawn Stars episode where someone's trying to sell a Cooper bill? How much do you think a mostly intact Cooper bill would be worth at present day? Well, I would say that a Cooper bill, like as in good condition as the one that was recently found. Well, let me just back up. People on the Facebook might not know this or not on Reddit. So when the money was recovered, it was 280 bills, I think. when that was recovered, a federal judge said that the FBI could keep 13 of it, and the rest of the bills had to be split between Royal Globe Insurance, which was the insurance company who paid out the money, and the Ingrams. Okay. So Royal Globe got 130 bills and the Ingrams got 130 bills. Well, we've wondered for years what happened. I mean, to the money that went to Royal Globe, because hey, there's 130 Cooper bills out there. Where are they? Well, Royal Globe merged with a company in the late 80s. And the thought has always been that these bills, if you don't know the Cooper story and you're going through file folders and things of this company that you just took over and you find a bunch of 20s that are decayed and disgusting, maybe you just throw them away or put them in some, storage unit or something. So we'd always thought that, hey, where is this missing money? And wildly enough, a guy came on Reddit the other last week, and credit to Nikki for engaging the guy. But the guy, he showed up with a Royal Globe 20. The first time any of us have ever seen some money that was taken from from Royal Globe. And by God, I just had that pulled up, folks. I don't know where the hell it went, but I just had the damn 20 pulled up. I do not know where the hell it is. Son of a gun. I had a photo of that money. Anyway, so it was a beautiful looking 20. So maybe I'll do that real quick. Let me look up on Reddit here, and I'll get it. Get a photo of it for you guys. It's a real. There it is. There we go. Okay, let me upload this to this so everybody can see it, because it's a beauty. I mean, this is probably the best looking Cooper bill I've seen. But this is one of the ones. Oh yeah, and the way the guy got it, his father worked for the insurance company, and his father his father was given it as a gift. So who knows how many other employees were given these gifts, but there's a bona fide Cooper 20. Okay. That thing right there, gosh, I don't know. I bet that could sell for $10,000 maybe. I mean, maybe less, maybe 7,500 or 5,000, something like that. Probably somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000. I bet you could sell that for, because there are people on eBay who are selling fragments of Cooper money for $5,000. So I bet that would go from $5,000 to $10,000. That's what I would pay. I think I could. Yeah. If I had the chance to buy that for $10,000, I would. Yep. Now some of you think that's crazy, but yeah, I'd buy that for $10,000 if I could, for sure. I mean, that's what it's worth to me. I wouldn't go any higher than that, but I would that's what I would say. All right. Okay, let's see. What am I doing? Where's my stupid thing? Here we go. All right. Okay. Any other questions, folks? Let's see. Anything else to talk about? Did Howard or his wife get some of the bills, or did Brian get all the bills? Who is Howard? Okay, so as far as the bills go, I believe, so the FBI kept 13. The FBI's bills that they kept, these are the ones that they kept. We can actually see that this is the FBI's bills. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. No, there's not 13, but they got 13 bills. So those are the ones that the FBI got. Okay. But I don't know who Howard is. So Dwayne is the dad. He's thinking of Harold. Okay, Harold Dwayne Ingram. Everybody called him Slim. In my book, I call him Slim because that's what everybody called him. So his name was Slim. But here, Harold Dwayne Ingram. I think that Brian kept them all. I mean, they were Brian's. But I know that, so The FBI kept 13. The Ingrams and I believe there was 286 bills in total. So now 7 bills. So Richard Tusaw, the author, was a lawyer, and he actually represented the Ingrams in the lawsuit to get the money back from the FBI. And his attorney's fees were, he got to choose 7 Cooper bills. So he was of his choosing from Brian's stash. So he got 7, probably. So the best Cooper bills out there, at least from Brian's stash, ended up in the family in Richard Tusaw. Now, Tusaw never had any kids, was never married. So where those bills are now, nieces, nephews, who knows? Interesting. Let's see. What's the worst DB Cooper movie other than the Bigfoot one? Yeah, it's the one. Yeah, Rose has that right. It's the one. I'm gonna know the name of it. I don't want to dignify it, but it's the one that came out a couple years ago. What was it? IMDb Cooper. That's it. IMDb Cooper. Yes. Yeah, IMDb Cooper, where the guy was literally 19 years old at the time. I mean, preposterous. And they made a whole movie about him. Ridiculous. Rodney Bonifield. That's it. He's in prison, I believe, by the way, currently for stabbing someone. All right. Did the F-106s following Flight 305 have any radar findings of Cooper or his jump? If not, why not? Radar findings of Cooper. No. Well, the F-106s were not. They were. Well, I guess they. So those planes basically were designed. They could they had gadgetry. So those planes could be flown remotely, or piloted remotely in a way. So the whole point of an F-106, they were bomber interceptors, and so what they could do is they could interface with Sage radar stations, and Sage radar stations could program these planes to fly to a certain frequency. Like if they were pinging Soviet bombers, Sage radar, then these Delta darts would automatically fly to these places, kind of autopilotish sort of things. And yeah, Cooper's now, Brad, this is interesting. So Brad is in the Air Force, but yeah, so Brad's saying that Cooper's physical signature would probably be too small to be picked up by radar. Now, Mark Meltzer claims, and I believe him, of course. I mean, I believe everything Mark says. Mark's the godfather of the Cooper world, in my opinion. Mark, and Mark has done radar and aviation for a long time. Mark says that he knew guys who operated Sage radars in the Air Force, and that one time when him and some other people jumped out of a plane, that the Sage radar guy who he knew called him the next day and said, "Hey, was that you guys jumping out? Because I saw y'all jump out of I could see your signatures jumping out of the plane." So there is a possibility that if they could pick up birds and things even sometimes. It's crazy. Well, Rose says, was that a clear day, Ryan? I don't think it matters as far as radar. Radar doesn't. I don't think that clouds are going to affect radar. I mean, obviously, if they did, we'd have a lot more planes crashing into each other, right? So I don't think radar. I mean, radar penetrates the ocean, right? So I don't think clouds going to matter. Would a heat signature be harder to see in a cold, rainy night? I'm not sure. I don't think so. I mean, could be. I don't think so. I don't know. I'm not a tech guy, but theoretically, if we could somehow, the thought is that if you could look at the radar signatures, if they still had them somewhere on a computer database, because remember the flight path, all that radar stuff was recorded in real time on a hard drive. That's how they were able to get the flight path so quickly. That if you looked at it deep enough, maybe you could see Cooper leaving. I'm not sure. Be weird. Okay. Yeah. So, David, let me just put this up here. Y'all think about how preposterous this is. Okay. David Triol. He says he talked to a guy named Matson, a Portland pilot who at 95 years old, there's your first indication, told me he saw DB Cooper standing on the aft stairs, giving him the finger just 5 miles north of Camas. No. How could you see? Well, for one thing, the pilots claimed that they could never even see Flight 305 because they were having to do these crazy S-turns the whole time just to keep up with it. So how could they have gotten good enough visual to see a human being on a plane? This is the guy who flew the Tomahawk. Well, that's wrong because Cooper jumped before the T-36 or whatever it is, the T-86, whatever that is, took over. So let's see. Did they ever 100% confirm Cooper's shoes? We don't know. He was wearing ankle-high leather shoes. Yeah, David, exactly. It came from PDX. Well, Cooper was off the plane by the time they crossed PDX. So, yeah, nobody's seeing anybody giving you the finger from a distance. Okay, especially at night. That's preposterous. Okay. Did the FBI find part of DB Cooper's briefcase at Tina Bar, as reported by Dorwin Schroeder? No. Dorwin, I've talked to him. I've not heard him say that. Maybe they found something, but no. That DB Cooper, for God's sakes, DB Cooper was never. He did not land at Tina Bar. Okay, he didn't land at Tina Bar. No, we can stop that. Eric Eulis has mind fucked people, pardon my French, into thinking that that's actually a possibility. It is not a possibility for Cooper to land at Tina Bar. Just not. 12 miles from where the plane was when Cooper jumped. Ridiculous. Okay. I mean, that's this anyway. Stress ball, Ryan. I know. Thank you, Nikki. Nikki says I need a stress ball. I know. I get really upset about that. Okay. Let's see. Rose said she used to work at the Red Lion. There we go. It's funny. Hey, the Red Lion. Let's see. All right. Oh, Jerome says, how did the money get to Tina Bar? No habla inglés, Jerome. I have no bloody idea how the money got to Tina Bar. And we never will know. We will never know how the money got to Tina Bar. Okay. Let's see. Oh, well, here's something that I'll show everybody. I have actually confirmed, and I have FBI files and photographs, which I'm saving for my book, but I have 100% confirmed that this photograph. So Brian and his family went back to Tina Bar a year later for a news story. And I have 100% confirmed, unequivocally 100%, because there are photographs that the FBI took. This is the exact spot where the money was found. Where Slim and Mama Ingram are, Patricia, Pat, where they're squatting is literally exactly where the money was found. So y'all look how close that is to the water. In what world would you bury, according to Eric's theory, in what world would you bury $1.4 million 20 feet from a damn mile-wide river? And then just leave and come back months later. Just preposterous. So yes, that is 100% the exact spot. 100%. I have no doubt about it. Okay. So Abraham, that looks nothing like where I buried the money. Bro, you didn't bury the money. Okay. You didn't bury the money. I know you keep saying that, but I mean, you didn't bury the money. All right. Do I think Mr. Ingram was a little sketchy? Do I think Mr. Ingram was a little sketchy? Absolutely not. Look, I used to hate Tina Barr a lot, and it was the last chapter of my book to be written was Tina Barr, because I hate Tina Barr worse than I hate stepping on a nail. Like, I hate Tina Barr. But when I talked to Brian and Pat and everybody in the family, like, I got interested in it. So most of my Tina Barr chapter is about the family. Okay. And I got a lot of information about them. And no, they are not shady at all. Nothing at all sketchy about Slim Ingram. Okay. Nothing at all. They are good people. And they were on a picnic out there because these people, so Rose, yeah, the weather, you don't understand how they were having a picnic on the beach. Well, I do, because they were outdoorsy types. So they were from Oklahoma, and it was always so rainy up in Portland that they never got to go do anything. And that day was sunny. It was cold, but they went out there with hot dogs, and there were about 12 people, about 12 members of the family out there. And speaking of that, yeah, Jim, I mean, that's Colbert trying to grift for his rack straw Dick Briggs nonsense. So where was it? How was the money found on Tina Barr? 3 bundles stacked perfectly or randomly piled on? According to Brian, they weren't neatly stacked on top of each other. Okay, he just kept reaching in and pulling them out. So they weren't stacked on each other. Now, they had been rubber banded together. That has been proven by Tom Kay. Now, with latest research, they were those. It was 3 packets. Okay, remember, let's look at some money so we can know what we're talking about when we talk about packets and bundles. Okay, because this can be kind of confusing for folks who don't really understand how Cooper's money was delivered. So Cooper's money was delivered in. I think this is probably the best photo we have of not Cooper's money exactly, but another ransom from a hijacking that year. So it was bundled together in packets. So like packets of 100 bills. So $2,000 packets. Okay. And they were bundled together in packets of 3 or 5, 3, 4, 5, something like that. And so the rubber bands had deteriorated mostly. So the packets had shifted. They had shifted sort of like this. So this was just this is an experiment. This is an experiment that I did with like some money and with some money. I threw this up against the wall just to see how the money would shift. So you can see how like the packets shifted when the rubber bands were already coming off. So they were loosely together, but they were 3 unique packets. Brian reached in the hole 3 different times and pulled out 3 different packets. So, okay. Let's see. Yeah. Nikki here says that Slim got to know that spot well because it wasn't a very populated beach, and he took his German Shepherd there, who was a skittish retired police dog. His name was George. The police dog was the Ingrams. Marat is saying, I'm wondering if you met or talked to Bill Mitchell. Well, I text Bill Mitchell about his Seahawks about once a week. So yes, I would say that Bill Mitchell is a friend of mine, a legitimate friend of mine. And I'm very proud to be his friend. So yes, Bill Mitchell calls me his memory man at CooperCon. He was being interviewed and said, "Where's Ryan? Where's my memory man?" So yeah, I consider Bill to be a friend. Yes, I've talked to him a good bit. Let's see. Yeah, exactly. Rose says, "Hell, I've met and talked to Bill Mitchell. Everyone in the Vortex knows him." Yes, come to CooperCon, Marat. I don't know where you live, but come to CooperCon next month. You can hang out with him all you want. He comes and drinks beers with us every night and hangs out. Bill's a good guy. All right. Okay. What else say? No. Okay. James says, could Bill Mitchell ID a Cooper photo today? I do not think so. He has said no. Bill has a great line. Bill says, do you remember the face of a substitute teacher that you had one time in first grade? No. No, not at all. So no, Bill cannot remember. In fact, our best witnesses lost their visuals of Cooper by 1976. Tina, within a year, said that she could barely remember his face. And Flo, who I think is our best witness, Florence Schaffner, says that she lost his face in 1976, which is funny because how she made the Dracula sketch, I call it the Kaiser Soze sketch. If you've ever seen The Usual Suspects, the Florence Schaffner sketch looks identical. The one that she made in 1989 for Unsolved Mysteries looks just like Kaiser Soze sketch at the end of Usual Suspects. Let me pull that up. There it is. That's kind of funny, isn't it? Let's see. Yeah, Nikki says the most complimentary he's been about a person of interest is Vordal. Yep. Yeah, Bill mainly about Vordal liked the vibe of Vordal. He said that Bill knew engineers. So Bill was an engineer himself. Bill became an engineer for Boeing. And Bill likes the idea that Cooper was an engineer because whoever he saw that day did not impress him very much physically as a physical specimen. He was not impressed. Now, again, that's the confidence of youth. He was 21 years old at the time. Big strapping 6'2" guy. Yeah. So, hey, Marat, you're in DC, buddy. Get on a plane. Come to CooperCon. dbcooperevents.com. Come to CooperCon. Hang out with Bill Mitchell. Get on a plane. Come see us next month. Okay. Any other surviving passengers besides Bill who were involved even casually with the vortex? No. Michael Cooper can be reached. I've not spoken to him, but he can be reached. Jack Olmsted could probably be reached. Larry Feingold lives in Israel. We've tried to find Nancy House, but she's not been receptive. We haven't been able to get in touch with her. It's because the only two people alive who we have 5 people alive who saw DB Cooper. That's Florence Schaffner, Tina Mucklow, Alice Hancock, Nancy House, and Bill Mitchell, who we know saw DB Cooper. Now, Nancy House's memory of Cooper was weak. All she remembered was that he had a narrow face and dark hair. She was more interested in the money in the briefcase he was carrying. So she didn't really look at his face much. And he's also wearing sunglasses too. So, but she just remembered that. So, let's see. Okay, good question, Chicken Dave. He says, if Cooper did not survive the jump, doesn't it become a missing persons case, which are easy to solve? I mean, are missing persons cases easy to solve? Aren't they missing persons for a reason? Because they're not easy to solve. No, and here's why. All right, so if you go to NamUs, which is the national whatever it is for missing persons, it's the database, NamUs. Okay, if you go to NamUs and you plug in men who were missing, and I do this because they add names every now and then, but this is the national database of missing persons who were reported to police. Okay, so if you go to NamUs and you search people who went missing, men who were, if you give it metrics, if you say age 30 to 60, who went missing from 68 to 71, it pops up like 40 people. That's it. Now, I can guarantee you that more than 40 men went missing from 68 to 71. The issue is a different time back then. Think about all the people who went out for a smoke and never came back, right? It happens a lot back then, especially back then. Men could just do whatever they wanted to. In fact, unless there was strongly foul play suspected, a woman could go to the FBI and say, oh, my husband's missing. He left. His car's gone. And the cops might say, well, lady, he's a grown man. If he wants to leave, he can leave. So it's called the missing, they call them. And in fact, even today, I've seen numbers as high as 1 million. That seems a little high, but they say that possibly there are as many as 1 million missings, people who are gone. I talk about my uncle who just vanished, for 20 years, just gone. And we never filed a missing persons report on him. If he had no kids or wife, he's just gone. We didn't care. And because he was causing trouble. So we didn't care that my mom's brother was gone. Like, whatever, good riddance in a way, right? So that's what Ralph Himmelsbach says. Ralph Himmelsbach says Cooper was a guy who, why would you report somebody missing who is happy they're missing, right? Because Cooper's an airplane hijacker. Maybe he was a mad scientist like Milton Berdahl. Maybe he was Skip Hall, who had a family. Maybe he was Gossett. Maybe, whatever. But maybe he was just a dipshit loser. So, and no one would miss him. In fact, I remember asking Martin McNally's sister. She was at CooperCon last year. Mark McNally was at CooperCon, and his sister was there too. And I asked her. I said, "Hey," if Marty had gone missing, if you guys didn't hear from Marty, your family. Now he came from a big family. There's like 8 McNally kids, and Marty was the black sheep. The rest of the family made money. They became doctors, lawyers, very successful. Mac got in the military and came back kind of messed up. So he was kind of the black sheep. And I asked sister, I said, would your parents, if Marty vanished, would they have filed a missing person report? And she said, no. They would have just let him go. So that's a good chance on that if Cooper did die, then the reason there's not a missing persons report is because maybe he had nobody to miss him. All right. Isn't a reasonable limit on missings the number of unclaimed bodies plus John Doe bodies? That's what, 10,000. I mean, if they found his body, but again, maybe missing, maybe he went and think about Melvin Wilson, right? One of our Cooper suspects. Melvin Wilson went missing. Melvin Wilson is our guy who was indicted for counterfeiting $200,000 2 months before the Cooper hijacking. He gets indicted for counterfeiting $200,000. A little on the nose there, if you ask me. But he's indicted for $200,000 and goes on the run. And his family never hear from him again. And we don't find out until a couple of years ago when his family went on Ancestry.com and they found somebody who shared their DNA. It was like a 50-year-old or something who was from Canada, and it was their half-brother. So Melvin Wilson fathered a kid in 72. So that's how we know that Melvin Wilson survived. So yeah, it's easy to go back then, especially. You could go just because you're missing doesn't mean you're dead. You could go start a new life, right? Let's see. Yeah, Rose says my aunt never filed a missing person report when her husband left. Yeah, most people didn't. Jerome says, do you think Gunther actually received a letter from someone claiming to be Cooper, or did he make that up? He did. Well, okay. I definitely think he got a letter from someone claiming to be the wife or mistress of Cooper. But whether he received something about Cooper in 1972, that's where I scratch my head. But as I said, we did find a couple months ago an FBI file for the first time ever. I was scrolling through there and I was like, oh my God, there it is in one of the new releases. That's why these FBI files are great, like Easter eggs. You never know what you're going to get, in these files. And we found a Gunther letter from 1982 where he's writing to the FBI saying, look, someone is corresponding with me claiming to be the wife of D.B. Cooper or widow of Cooper. This is probably, he says this is probably a hoax, but I'm wondering if you guys are still investigating this. And if you're interested in this, let me know. So lying to the FBI is a federal crime. Okay. So Gunther's not going to do that. So I do think Gunther was hoaxed by somebody claiming to be the wife of Cooper, but I don't think that, there's no truth to it. I don't think. Okay. Uncle Jim says, what about the Cooper letters? Could one be real? I don't think so. I mean, this is a guy who, when Tina threw his matches away, she emptied out his matches. It was this matchbook here. Yeah. So his first matchbook that he had was this, a yellow ICS matchbook, which ironically, if you can read that, says, let me see if I can get it up there. Maybe it's not focusing, but it says, increase your earning power fast, which is kind of funny. But this is an ICS matchbook. This is what Cooper had with him. He also had a Sky Chef matchbook, but this was the first one he used. So when it ran out of its matches, Tina took this matchbook and she put it in the seat pocket in front of her, which is where they put trash and stuff. And Cooper goes, oh, no. Let me give that back to me. So this is a guy who was meticulous enough to get back a matchbook that was trash, an empty matchbook. I don't think he's going to be writing letters to the FBI and gloating about it. Rose says the Sky Chef one probably came from PDX. That'll be my guess. Either that or there is some thought that he flew into PDX because McCoy, when he hijacked a plane out of Denver, he had actually flown into Denver earlier that day. So possibly. Where is Coolidge? William Coolidge says, did the sled test use a parachute? No. So that William, the sled test, there was no parachutes on there. They were just doing that to simulate the stairs shutting. That was a sled that fell into the Pacific Ocean. So they never did. They thought about it though. There were, as early as very soon after the hijacking, they were saying, hey, could we simulate with a parachute, him jumping out? And the FBI said, well, we don't know precisely where he jumped. So that's kind of a moot point, right? So that's what they said. They said that wouldn't help us much at all because we don't know where he jumped precisely. So, and no, an MB6, that's an MB6 behind me. Yeah, people talk about it like it's a death sentence. No, not even remotely close. It is a parachute. Parachutes have like a 99.97% survival rate. They're not a death sentence. I don't care what you say. Cooper may have been injured when he landed, probably in the dark, I would think. I'm not sure about Heinemann, but I know that every other copycat hurt themselves when they landed. Because landing at night is not great for skydiving. So, yeah, I agree. Jerome says he doesn't think that the matchbook has any connection to anything significant. Yeah, I agree. Matchbooks were everywhere, especially these. These were incredibly ubiquitous because this was it's how they advertised. ICS, it's an international correspondence school, basically the University of Phoenix of its time. Yes, Rose, you can leave. Dancing with the Stars is, I'll wrap this up soon. Rose, you can leave if Dancing with the Stars is starting. Okay. James says, are the FBI 302s being released in chronological order that they were created? Roughly. Yeah. So let me try to pull this up. So the FBI files are being released in the order of, let me see if I can find this for you guys. So they're being released in the order of the alphabetical order of trying to explain. I'm trying to explain that to you guys. Let's see. Give me a second here, guys. Bear with me because I do think this is important for y'all to see. Talk amongst yourselves. Dadgummit. Here it is. Okay, good. All right. So this is how it looked. The FBI files. This is how they are releasing them. How they've been releasing them. So if you can see there, it's kind of, maybe you can get next to your screen or whatever. But I don't know if the clarity is good enough for you guys to read that. But so it starts out with like it's subfolders. These are called subfolders. Sub A, sub B, sub C, sub D. And that's kind of how they've been releasing them in that order. And right now we have about 30,000 files left to go. And we're currently in the suspect files. So right now, when you go through the FBI files, or the files that are being released every month are suspect files, because they've already done all of these. So all of these are done. Everything you see on there has already been released, but the suspect files are what we're going through now, and those are the bulk of it, about 40,000 pages, and that's what we're going through. So that's what we're looking at. David says, Bill Whitney was a little short, but why would they interrogate him for 5.5 hours? Well, I mean, can we blame them for interrogating Bill Whitney for 5.5 hours, David? I don't blame them. I mean, Bill Whitney was a skydiving badass. I think he had the altitude record at the time, like in the world, from Seattle, right? And he looks like this. I mean, it's no wonder they thought it was him. There's Bill Whitney right there. He's still alive, by the way. I should try to contact him. Anyway, all right. Yeah, there's Bill Whitney. Anything else, folks? Anything else you want to talk about? I'm here for a little while longer. Do I think Dan Greider dropping a bag of fake money to make a video was illegal? No. Nikki's asking about Edwards' new person of interest. What do I think about him? Well, I don't think he's Cooper. I don't think he looks very ethnic. I think his nose is too big. It's nothing. I will die on that hill. Cooper had a small nose. Do I think Larry Carr, was not told everything to protect Cooper's ID? No. Protect him. Why would anybody protect Cooper's ID? Like, no one cares. Like, it was, again, we make Cooper more important than he was. He was a bank robber who got away with it. Nothing more than that. It's not that special. He's special to us, but he's not special in the grand scheme of things. Could they have messed up on Bill Whitney? I mean, it's not Bill Whitney. I mean, it's just okay. Chicken Dave says Rickenbacker guitar in the corner, lefty John Lennon. Yep, that's my left-handed. I'm left-handed. I play guitar left-handed. That's my left-handed John Lennon. Okay. Nuclear Hoax says, hey, Ryan, I drew pictures for your channel in residential treatment. I want to send them to you. Okay. My email is norjackinvestigation@gmail.com. It's all, if you can't find that, it's also on my norjack.org page, so you can find it. Let's see. If I could travel back, Jerome says, if you could travel back in time to 1971, I would get an MB6 and some replica ransom bills and bury them at Cle Elum, just for the laugh. That would be funny. That would be that would do things. Should I go to CooperCon? Coolidge? Hell yeah, you should. Come meet me, Nikki. Come meet Chris. For God's sakes, yes. Come meet Bill Mitchell. He'll be there. Okay? Meet everybody. CooperCon, I cannot emphasize that enough. If you are into DB Cooper, go to CooperCon. Okay? dbcooperevents.com. Get it, buy tickets. Come, you get to hang out with Bruce Smith and all these other people and drink beers with us and rip roaring time. It's just like you have to go to CooperCon, and it's at the Museum of Flight. That's why we took over the event from Eric, because we did not want to lose the Museum of Flight. You could not picture a better venue than that. They have a statue, a literal, what other place in the world has a statue of DB Cooper, right? And on Saturday, they're going to open up the 727. There is a 727-100, same model as Cooper jumped out of. Not open to the public, but they're going to open it just for us Cooper people to go on board. So we'll be able to go on board and see the distances people were sitting and things like that. It'd be awesome. Okay, because definitely come to CooperCon. I of course, for God's sakes, like, live your life, enjoy it. Come to CooperCon. Okay. You love air history. You're a former Marine, Mr. Coolidge. By the way, for those who don't know, museum entrance fee is included in your ticket cost for CooperCon. All 3 days you get museum pass too. The museum itself is like $25 to go. There is no better aviation museum on planet Earth. I've been to many. I've been to the ones at Cambridge in England. I've been to one in Germany, DC. Nothing compares to this. I mean, there is a 747 just sitting there. There's a SR-71 sitting there. They have a whole wing that I would say probably has about 80 World War II and World War I planes. Literally like 80. Okay. All of them. Do I want to see the Italian piece of junk that they flew? Sure. There it is. Like most museums, they'll have a Spitfire or a Mustang. This has everything. It is amazing. So yes, please come, Coolidge. You will not regret it. Okay. Let's see. Bruce Smith once said, if we ever find out who DB Cooper is, we might say, who the hell is he? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just met the odds. The mathematical odds would suggest that DB Cooper is not a name we've ever heard. I mean, there could be a million guys on Earth back then who could fit the profile for Cooper, right? I often mention that McNally had the best chance of getting away with it other than Cooper. And you could live a million lifetimes investigating the Robert Wilson hijacking. That was his alias. You could spend a million lifetimes and you would never, ever come across Martin McNally, unemployed gas station worker from Wyandotte, Michigan, right? Ever. So now, granted, Cooper is a little different than these guys, I think. But yeah, I mean, the tie particles could help us find Cooper. But no, yeah, when we find Cooper, we're going to be like, And Martin Andrade always likes to say that whenever we see Cooper, he's going to be probably only about 80% of what we expect Cooper to be. And I could kind of see that too. I'm kind of with him on that. Was DB Cooper from the East Coast? I doubt it. I mean, could have been, but East Coasters kind of have some accents. And Cooper didn't seem to have an accent. They thought he had a Midwestern accent. Stewardesses are probably pretty good at accents. And they thought he was from the Midwest or the West They said he had no accent whatsoever. Berger says, what got you into DB Cooper in the first place? I guess seeing Unsolved Mysteries episode in syndication, seeing Mr. Spock in Search of, reruns on the History Channel when I was a kid, stuff like that. So that got me into it. And then when Larry Carr came out and started really talking about everything to the media, that really got me back into it, like in 2008, 9, something like that. Okay, somebody had a question a while ago who, okay, James says, do you think the FBI is holding back specific details of the case that only Coop would know to discredit false confessions? No, not anymore. They did. The tie was the main one. The tie was not known until the late 80s, the existence of Cooper's tie. So that was their holdback. So they did do that. In fact, James, you may want to, I have a video on my channel. So when you're done with this, go watch my video. Maybe you saw it already, but I have a video called The 8 Questions That They Wanted to Ask DB Cooper. So basically, the FBI had a list of questions to ferret out false confessors and things like that. I have a whole video on that because those questions in one of the most recent Vault releases, those questions were revealed. But the tie was the main thing. They were able to say, what did you leave on the plane? And, nobody, no one would have known that until the late 80s that Cooper left his tie on the plane. Yes, Nikki, you nailed it. I recommend not relying on info from any documentaries. Hell yeah. Basically, if it's pre-2016, even the ones after 2016 have some bogus things in them. But we have 2 distinct eras of history in Cooper. We have, before the FBI files and after the FBI files, and they are as disparate as BC and AD. They're night and day. Okay. So we have to have, anything before the FBI files is useless, in my opinion. Okay. Chicken says, as an attorney, what is your take on the blanket John Doe indictment from the 70s and how binding is that indictment? Well, it's binding. It's a grand jury indicted him for sure. So what they did there is essentially they do it a lot for DNA now. It's called a John Doe indictment, where so to have an indictment on somebody, you have to at least have a good enough description of them. Okay, so that's why if you look at the John Doe indictment for Cooper, it says, it's got in there. It's got in there the first thing it lists is his physical description. Okay, but it's binding, and it was necessary. It turns out it was necessary to toll the statute of limitations. There was it became a 5-year at the time that Cooper committed the hijacking. There was no statute of limitations on hijacking because it was a capital crime. It was a death penalty crime. And like with murders and things, there's no statute of limitations. Okay. But there was a court decision in 1974, a Supreme Court decision, that basically made anything that was not murder a 5-year statute of limitations, like murder, kidnapping, other things. And it was retroactive. So even though it was a death penalty crime and there was no statute of limitations when Cooper committed his crime, it retroactively made it to where there was a 5-year statute of limitations. So it was necessary to get that John Doe indictment. Otherwise, Cooper could have literally just gone on TV and said, hey, it's me. And what's interesting is that the FBI, they were preparing for that. And what they were going to do is they had talked to the Attorney General's office. So these cool files, I write about it in my book, that they were going to get him on tax evasion. So that's how they were going to get Cooper. If Cooper emerged and said, "Hey guys, it's me. I'm Billy Jones." Well, they would have gone after Billy Jones for not paying taxes on his ill-gotten gains. So you do have to pay taxes on illegal. You do have to pay taxes on illegal profits. So think about Al Capone, right? That's how they got him. That's how they were planning to get Cooper if he did that. Yes. Okay. Let's see. What if he claimed the tax? Well, if he paid taxes on it, good question. That's a good, I don't know. Well, I guess they assumed he wasn't going to claim taxes on that because, miscellaneous income of $200,000 could be. William Coolidge says myth number one, they jumped into the wilderness. Absolutely. Yeah, no. In fact, let's bring that up again. We'll show that picture for the millionth time. Where'd it go? I mean, this is where the FBI currently thinks Cooper jumped. This is a photograph from 1971 of orchards. This is from September 71, so 2 months before the hijacking. Those arrows point to some sand pits, but this aerial shot is above Orchards, Washington in 1971, 2 months before the hijacking. This is where Cooper likely jumped, somewhere around here. Okay, so that's not the wilderness at all. In fact, it's a county that had 130,000 people living in it in 1971. So hardly anything but a wilderness for sure. So there we go. All right. Let's see. Yeah, Jerome, that the sand. Yeah, I think that's the whole point of that, is that there may be something fishy about that sand ending up at Tina Bar somehow. And maybe the money being in that sand, because if Cooper lost his money or buried the money temporarily or something, it could have fallen into that sand pit. And, the Fazios have said that they've never brought sand into there, but I don't know about that. We'll see. Maybe. Let's see. Okay. All right, then. Well, if nothing else, that's going to be it. We've gone 2 hours and 20 minutes. So I'll wrap up here. My voice is being gone. It's hard to do these things talking without a backup. One thing I'm going to think about doing is I am going to look into the possibility after CooperCon. I think I'm going to look into the possibility of me and Nikki were talking about this today about doing a call-in show every now and then, because I do believe that there is a way on my app here or on this device that I use to do these streaming that I can have a number to call in and we can do a call-in show. So that might be something to think about. I think that would be cool. Okay. Let's see. Yes, open call lines. Be like Coast to Coast AM. I can be like Gossett. Gossett had a paranormal show. But yeah, I think that'd be fun to have open lines. We'll see. I don't know. It might aggravate me, but I do like interacting with everybody. So I think that'd be fun to at least do every now and then. So anyway, all right, guys. 10 people are going to call in and claim to be Cooper, probably. All right, guys. Well, that's it for tonight. So y'all be good. And hopefully, listen, if anybody's on the fence about CooperCon, for God's sakes, dbcooperconevents.com. Come, be awesome. Go on to 727. Have beers with the guy who sat 5 feet from DB Cooper. I just cannot describe how fun CooperCon is. So anyway, all right, guys, good night and good luck. Adios.